Hey, hey, welcome to another episode. I am Dagny.
I'm Damali.
And in this episode, we want to discuss with you the
Mhm.
concepts, the dynamics, and the experiences of millennials as pioneers on this
Mhm.
planet.
Yes.
If you did not already know, we are part of the millennial generation.
Yes.
And we wanted to reflect on the where we are right now and what was promised to millennials that kind of doesn't exist now. And how we've been grappling with that and how we see that reflecting in our generation and why we do all deserve the label of pioneer, and wanted to also share encouragement as to why as a generation we feel like we really need to give ourselves more credit than we do. We, and this is all over the world, I feel as millennials, we have seen a whole lot
Oh,
and had
yes.
to adapt to a whole lot and learn a lot in a very short amount of time, sometimes at a very young age compared to previous generations. And I think that has enabled us to be quite a unique and interesting group of people now. So that's the summary. That's what we're going to get into. It's going to be juicy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Very. Yeah. Okay. Well, first, I guess I'll start with the definition of pioneer if we don't already know what it is.
Yes.
Okay. So the one definition here I have is pioneer, noun, a person who is among the first to explore or settle a new country or area. Hmm. All right. So yeah, millennial, as you know by our title, a millennial pioneer. It looks like we definitely are settling not so much in a new country, but in a new area, a
Mm.
new like era, a new stage of life. It looks like
Oh, and then
with
also for everyone to
everything.
know,
Ah, yes.
millennials this year of 2023, the millennial
Hmm.
generation is between the ages of 27 and 42,
Hmm.
just so
Hmm.
everyone knows. Okay, continue.
Yes. So yeah, so you know where we fall. Um, so yeah, we're not babies anymore, even though some generations before us think that we still are. Yeah, so we're a whole new landscape, and I think I'm sure many of you know that millennials sometimes we get a lot of bad rap for stuff that maybe is not not accurate. I'm sure we've all heard it before how millennials are. People say we're lazy, we don't know what we're doing, we're re- removed from the truth and all this stuff. But clearly, we're not removed from the truth, and all of us have been through a lot, and COVID didn't help that, right? We already had problems to deal with before that, and then COVID kind of made it even harder to kind of, try to live in this world. And I think we should be given more credit for how we're surviving and dealing with our mental health and things like that while we're going through all of these issues of the world. Um, and yeah, I think even if we don't want to grasp it, I think we are going to be the new leaders of the world, right? We're the ones that are, when the older generations go, we are going to be the main ones in charge. So that's definitely there's this big shift going on because of that. Um, I guess the first part of being millennial I'll talk about is the internet.
Mm.
um, it didn't used to be what it is now, obviously, but we all grew up with the internet. We're kind of the first ones to kind of do this whole full internet social media thing going on. And it started out as just a fun thing to use when we were younger, but now it's really like we're really leveraging this social media internet age, and it seems to really it has helped us a lot, I think, in the career force. Like there's so many new things and cool things we're able to do online that maybe our older generations, it's difficult for them to tap into that or do that. And we're like the first ones to kind of use social media for so many different interests and things like that. And I think we're kind of like we have been able to create new jobs because of this new social media and tech thing going on, which that also kind of makes us a pioneer as well, right? Because this is a whole new thing that we're utilizing for our lives. And yeah, and then I think we are trying to work smarter, right? I think people have heard that term before, like, don't just work hard, work smart, right? You don't want to work super hard and then not get anything out of it. And I think we have been working smarter and trying. It's like we're trying to kind of build this new system, but it's like not there yet. So we're still kind of trying to put the puzzle pieces together. And I think that's
So back
why
up. Hold
many
on.
of us are. Oh, before I continue.
Gotta go. Yeah, you gotta go step by step. We can't
yes.
dive in
Hold
that
on.
immediately.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So when we start, as you started with the internet, I would say yes, internet and tech, that we are the generation that adapted to and learned about it on the go at a very young age. So like I remember my first introduction to computers, even before internet was as big as it is now. Back when I might have been in kindergarten or first grade, right? It was a while, of learning this is the mouse and this is how you click it. And this is what the save icon means and this sort of thing. And because of that, being people who are quite, not tech savvy in terms of, okay, yeah, we know what we're doing, but also tech savvy in that we will create with it as opposed to only being consumers of it. And,
True.
But then also having to adapt at a much rapid pace, brain-wise, with technology. So the notion that millennials actually are one of the most, I think, more advanced educated, which is not only because of degrees, right? Because education is not just the degrees you pick up, but also just we have read it. We've watched the documentary. We found the random clip somewhere to know about that book. Like we are very into, we are, sometimes I feel we don't get enough credit for how much knowledge we actually do carry, that previous generations would insist, well, you didn't sit in a library, or you don't have the degree, or you're not old enough to know that. And it's like, wait a minute. I had Encarta and Wikipedia and AskJeeves.com and Google. So don't even, we've been down those rabbit holes. And I think that has, I don't want to say desensitized us, but I feel because we know so much, we do question a lot more, and have, as a generation, done more to be pointing out the holes.
We aren't afraid to ask why.
Yeah. Why are these holes still here? Why is this still not benefiting everybody? Why are you maintaining this system, this curriculum, this society, this box? Why are we maintaining this box when it's obvious it's not benefiting everybody? It's not broken. We can see that you created it to do exactly what it's doing. Why?
Yeah.
Why? And like you noted, of like, because as our generation is shifting from being the student to the authority, dynamic, it's interesting to take note of, where is there space for our knowledge, our skills, our questioning, and our bigger picture of, no, this should not remain, everything should not remain as is. Is there space for that at all? And are we taking care of ourselves enough to continue that? Because I feel like, like I know, to the youngest in millennials is 27, which means in a few years, there will be no longer people in their 20s. And I don't know about you, but I feel like the 20s for all of us was always like that. I would say for me, that rite of passage of, you feel fired up and wanting to, like, no, we're going to save everything and change everything.
Yes, we can.
Yes. And others may label that as, that's when you become radical sort of thing, not in a violent way, but just like you are reading and you understand that, like, no, you can't just take the news as gospel. You can't just take what the teacher says as that's it. There's more to that. And our generation took that to then go into utilizing technology for movements. I think we're possibly the first to add that layer to movements. So whether it was, yes, the Yes We Can campaign, I did volunteer for that a long time ago. Yes, I did. Mm-hmm. I was fired up, kept hope alive. Yes. But even also looking at the Arab Spring also, there was a lot of millennials involved in that. And that was a Twitter movement that was happening at that time. And then you look at the different uprisings that need to be happening now. And there's actually a lot of us millennials who are at the forefront utilizing technology to get the voice out there, to get the images out there, to get the truth out there. And what I've always wondered too with that is, as we continue doing that, which is not necessarily fun to do that, because it's like you're dealing, some of this stuff is heavy. Like, we use technology and the internet for fun and entertainment, yes, but some of the stuff is also heavy. And having to go through that throughout majority of our generation, where it's that meme of like, you're in the room, everything's burning, but you're sitting there like, it's fine because it's fine. But I'll make sure to get the photos and the text and the Twitter and the stuff so everyone knows it's burning. As we're moving, shifting generationally to be in spaces where we can be authority and stuff, connecting to how are we going to shift into that newer system? Are we, have we figured out how to do that beyond our stuff online or our talking in person? Because I feel like for me, it's a decade ago, it felt like maybe this is good, that at least we got the story out there. At least we got awareness. It was very much of like, well, maybe if more people were aware that this is happening, if more people were aware that this is wrong, it would be fixed, right? Yeah. And then in this decade that we're in now, it's like the awareness is there and nothing is changing. Like, the awareness is there and you're still continuing to see that the awareness hasn't stopped the continuation of the holes and the atrocities and the exploitations and the unfairness, regardless if it's large scale or on an individual level. And I'm not sure yet, because now, as we noted, because we both were like reading up on, okay, so what are people saying about millennials now? And a lot of people are being like, yeah, we don't report on that anymore. There's not much to say anymore. Or we still want to pretend as if they're 15 years old whenever we bring them
like
up.
we're children.
That we're children. And it's like, okay, you don't either. We're not reporting on that anymore, because the whole part of focusing on millennials so much, when we were a generation that was between, I guess, the late teens to late 30s or so, was more about capitalism, more about trying to figure out how to sell to us and what we would like to consume, and how to keep us loyal to certain brands and things like that. While now capitalism is more focused on the generation after us, to see how to get them addicted to their products and services. So now it's like
stuff all the time.
Yeah. So now it's like, well, millennials already know what they want to use, so we don't really need to do that anymore. And it's like, okay, I mean, as if we already died. And I'm like, we're still here, but okay, go off. That's fine. But it just seemed now, what is talked about now, which is now actually millennials speaking on it, is the differences of how we're grappling with taking note of certain realities and milestones that we kind of were promised if we continue working hard, studying hard, doing what we're supposed to do. And we're now at the time where those milestones are supposed to be happening, and they're not. And this is something that's happening all over the world, even though still some of the rhetoric is still kind of focused on only certain countries. Like it's only stats about millennials in the US, or it's only stats about millennials in a European country. But this is also happening in other parts of the world as well, where you're having millennials who are in their 30s and 40s who did the work, finished the schooling, did what they were supposed to do, but the salary is not meeting the rent expectations or the bill expectations. And the things, an interesting article that we found, which we'll link in the show notes, was speaking to how the millennial, I think they call it the millennial subsidy lifestyle or something, where it speaks
millennial
to
consumer subsidy.
There we go. Where it speaks to how the concept of having ride sharing apps, delivery apps, subscription apps, which were very much for the millennial, up and coming millennials being professional, so that, you go to work in an Uber and then at night you get your dinner delivered, and these sorts of things that used to be accessible price wise are now all expensive. But then, which was interesting in that article, was that it's not that they're expensive, it's just that for the previous decade, they were operating at a loss with those low prices just to get a whole bunch of people, a whole bunch of customers. Now they can no longer operate at a loss. So now this is the real price tag to deliver that meal, or this is the real price tag for this car ride, which actually is more than if you would just take a regular taxi, which then again does not match. The math is not mathing with the salary that some millennials have. Then this concept of a lot of people feeling like life should be a case where your one job should be able to cover all of that. It shouldn't be that you need to have one job plus 12 other side hustles after you clock out of your 9 to 5, as well as trying to invest in stuff you don't know about, all just trying to make ends, still basically just living paycheck to paycheck or making ends meet. Or only living on credit if you're in a country that has the credit card system situation. And so I just feel like there's like different layers in terms of how millennials are, how we have continued to be pioneers, but also grappling with the system we've been pioneering in has not kept up its side of the deal. When now the millennials are the adults and they note that the combination of us being very aware of injustice, as well as things not aligning with the milestones we're supposed to have, what was the point then? Like, what is the point of any of it then? Which I think is where then some of the frustration and apathy comes into play for our generation, of feeling like our energy was exploited. And now we feel like, well, then I might as well just not. Like, we're just here to secure the bag and keep it moving. Like, don't worry about it kind of thing. And that's where I'll keep it for now. There's other stuff I want to say, but let's go there. And then we can go to like the new system part. But just to fill in how we're shifting into, because I feel right now there's a reason, everybody who's in this millennial generation, there's a reason why we're in this generation. There's a reason why, if you believe we chose to be in this generation, there's a reason why we've had to witness everything we've witnessed. We've had to adapt so quickly to things, had to accept things that previous generations actually have not had to deal with. And even though it may seem like, we have more privileges because of technology, because of where we're at now, so we're all educated, so everything should be fine. And it's like, but that's great to be educated, but if everything looks ew, what's the point? If we're super educated, that means we can see through everything and it's looking ew. What are we supposed to do with that? And I feel that what we're going through now, as we're reflecting on this and looking at what's going on in our realities, I feel like our pioneering energy is still very much needed. And we have it naturally for a reason. And we'll get more into those reasons in a moment, but I'll stop there now. Yeah.
Yeah.
So continue.
Yeah, definitely. They say ignorance is bliss, but we don't have ignorance anymore. So it's not bliss. That's basically what's happening. And it feels like we're like in this lull of just like, what do we do now kind of thing. And I feel like, yeah, the starting in our 20s and stuff, there was all this fire and everything. And there were so many things like, I feel like when I was in 20s, there were so many things I wanted to say and share. And I'm like, this is all this information and everyone needs to know and we need to do all this stuff. And then as you get older or kind of, get to the closer end of your 20s or early 30s, where it gets kind of like, oh, I made so much noise, but like, what did anything happen? Everything is just a scam. Like, what's the point? I think that, I think it's good that it's not bad to go through the different shifts of like, I was all fired up and then now I'm quiet and then fired up. And then, I think it's good to conserve your energy because if you use up all of it, you're depleted. Right. And I did like what you say where, yeah, it's not, even though we hear more about it in America and things, I think it's happening like all over the world where there's this feeling of like, we were told that, oh, if you just work hard or you do this and you get everything and you get the degrees, all of this, then you should be promised all this stuff afterward and this perfect job and all of this stuff. And now we're kind of finding out that that's not it. It's like you were promised this like gift that you were supposed to get. And then when like, you're like, okay, where's my gift? You're all ready for it. And it's like, oh no, it's not really, that's not what you thought it was, kind of thing. And we're like, oh, okay, that's kind of a letdown. I think, and I will add also that I think we are talking more about our mental health. I feel like there's a lot more people talking about their mental health and healing and like trying to go more internal, and figure out your inner peace, and then from there figure out what you want to do in the external. Especially with there's so much, I mean, everyone is aware of the news. There's so much crazy stuff happening in the news right now. And I know, things I've heard from other millennials is like, what's the point of doing anything? Like the world's burning anyway. Everything's just on fire. Like, why are we even here? Why are we even trying? But I think, we kind of, I mean, we need to try, right? We have to, we're going to be like I said, we're going to be we're the pioneers, we're the new leaders, and we're the ones that are going to be more in charge of the decisions and rules and things like that. So if anything, maybe we can see this as we're just kind of we're like, there's times of just being really calm and chill so we can get ready to spring again and, start to, make more noise again. Although we hear it more now, people are doing more things now. And like, really, really, I think it's interesting how we've been able to use the social media and the internet the way that we do. It's a completely different machine and animal than it was in the beginning. And when I was younger too, it was kind of just like, oh, okay, I'll just have like MySpace and talk to Tom, like, you know what I mean? And just push, no, that's it. That was all it was for. And then all of a sudden we're using it for movements and we're using it for health and mental health and help, and there's all these different programs that are supposed to help you with your life and do all these things online all of a sudden. And people are, like years ago, like to have, oh, you have a job completely online. What is that? Like, how does that work?
And our generation created that.
I know, like
because of us. Yeah.
Yeah. And we take it like, oh, okay, it's nothing. We just did it. But it's like, yeah, we were the ones that created this whole, and I think we're really trying. It's almost like we're trying to build this new system, but like, we don't know what it will look like yet. So that's what we're still kind of figuring out, and then we're still we're like a rock and a hard place because we're kind of getting pulled to do something different and new in this new system, but you're still being pulled by the old system that of course is getting a little bit quieter as we get more of our strength and realize how important our role is in the whole grand scheme of things. But there's still that push and pull of like, well, they always did this, so we should do it, but kind of thing. And I think even for me too, like, I think when I was younger, maybe sometimes certain things would trigger me more that the older generations would say. And I'm just like, okay. But then as I get older, I'm like, well, that's their reality. That's how their lives were. But ours are different. And there's certain levels to it that maybe older generations don't understand because they weren't like in it. And yeah, we've been through a lot of things. I know, I think I hear a lot of people talking about anxiety and being anxious all the time. We hear a lot more about that, and people dealing with their anxiety. I think, and also for I mean, as great as social media is, there are other millennials too that are talking about taking breaks from social media, like, or not wanting to have social media, or not wanting to be on it as much as we are because of how it influences everyone. And people want to be more, out, out in the world and things, and not have to, have social media there all the time. But yeah, there definitely is a huge shift going on. And then of course we all know that our current economic issue was not caused by us, right? We're not like the main ones that caused it, but we are the ones that will have to solve it. Like, we're the ones that have to figure out a solution that works. I know that having COVID happening kind of made, I guess, set us back, right, a bit, because a lot of people, losing jobs, and jobs that used to be around are not around anymore. And like, and sometimes even having a degree can be against you sometimes in certain or having extra degrees in certain aspects. So, yeah, I think it's good that we ask why, and it's good that we have all of this knowledge and information. I do think we will have it will be useful in the future. I don't think it will be a thing where, oh, we learned this for nothing. Like, no, I don't think it's for nothing. I think it's for something bigger, and I think we should continue to embrace the fire, and embrace the questions we have, and embrace what because I don't know, in 10, 20, 30 years, how, I mean, if we're able to succeed and we have this whole new system that really works very well for us, and we can be like, wow, okay, it actually worked out, then it'll be like, oh, okay, then it was worth it. It was worth, being fired up and having a lot of things. And, and it's funny that it's always like, the older people being like, oh, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. But I'm like, every generation is like that though, aren't they? Like, every generation has that time when they were younger and they were screaming out and doing all this stuff, and they're young, so they can do it. And so no matter what people say, they're like, oh, we're gonna keep on fighting in any way we can to get what we are due, kind of thing, or to change like like a program or injustice or things that are going on. And yeah, and so I think as long as we continue to realize our power, and expand on it, and not, and yes, you should take breaks. Obviously, that you need to take breaks and chill out. And I think it's okay to sometimes feel like, what's the point? Like, it's okay to have moments like that, but get right back up. Like, take a break off of the horse and then get back on, right? Because for me personally, yeah, I've gone through times too where I'm like, what's the point of doing anything? Like, you try to help, try to do things, you try to, you think that like things are so important, and then it's like, oh, but the world is still on fire. What are we? I had like, it's almost as if we had all these buckets to put the fire out, but then it gets bigger and bigger, kind of thing, or it keeps on going back to its normal, usual level of the fire. But I think it'll be definitely. I mean, the fact that we're so good at adapting to change, and we have had to, is good. If you can adapt to change, and you can adapt to all these different things going on, I think that's good. So then you'll be ready for anything, right? But yeah, so we kind of, I mean, but maybe we didn't choose to be millennial pioneers. We didn't choose to be leaders, but like, I mean, a lot of people don't choose to be a leader. You just kind of have to be one, right? But yeah, so I definitely think we're at a very interesting time. And I think we should continue to, be loud and continue to use our voices. And I know it's hard. I know the world is on fire. I know, we all know it's on fire. Okay. But I think we still, that, there's still something left. There's a lot left for us to do, and we're still here. We're not gone. We're not. I know sometimes we tend to jump. We're like, okay, so now let's go to Generation Z. What are they doing? Kind of thing. And I'm just like, oh wait, okay, hold on. Millennials are still here. We still have like a lot that we still have to get done. So we'll see what, we are the
I feel
trailblazers.
for, yes, and I do. I feel for me. I feel like we did choose to be millennials and pioneers, in the sense that we all share an enthusiasm or an appetite to innovate or create new things or create solutions. that are right in front of us. Similar to how noting that the way the internet has evolved is a lot directly due to our generation. We started out as the guinea pigs for the internet, and then we ran with it. So it's like, well, we were already pioneers in that realm of like MySpace would not be what it was if it wasn't for the way we decided to take it on and use it for the different ways that people were using it. And I think I feel like there's the next level of our collective and individual pioneering I feel needs to be like focused on how can we do this? How can we be even more smarter, if that's the correct way to phrase that?
Smarter.
To be smarter about it, where we've taken note that we have been spreading awareness about everything under the sun and under the moon for some time now. Whether it's you understand that we need to be taking care of our environment because a lot of our previous generations have just been trashing it for decades. And that's not cool. So even though you've never seen a polar bear in person, you know they should not be as skinny as they are right now. So what are we going to do about that, right? Or in political stuff, which we don't need to go into too detail, but we always have been taking note all over the world. What political stuff is just not okay at all. And what I'm hoping for, I hope and trust for, is that if we are shifting into gradually becoming the person who has authority to deal with the ozone layer, the person who has the authority to deal with what are we doing with the polar bears, the person who has the authority to deal with the regulations for trade, the regulations for schools, the regulations for travel, are we truly going to be different from all the uselessness that previous generations have done? No offense to previous generations. I know some of you did not put the trash on the floor. I get it. Some of you didn't, but your colleagues, your comrades did. That's why we're sitting in the mess that we're in now. Can we, as a generation, are we truly on the same page of what our role is as we become more, as we take up more space, moving away from being only the student in those spaces, or only the intern, or only the employee, or only, like now it's like, no, actually, we're not only calling the shots individually, but there are millennials who are in charge of a whole lot of other people, or are in charge of mega agreements and stuff. Are we on the same page about where we want to lead this planet as a generation? And can we truly say that we're not going to repeat what previous generations have done? Because I've noted there's a pattern where, like you noted, where every generation had their so-called revolutionary or raising awareness or wanting to protest for something, or they just discovered that Columbus didn't do what he said he did. They have their time and they'll make some noise, and they're in history books for making noises. And then they grew up and kind of looks like a lot of them did exactly what they were complaining about when they were younger. And it's just like, what changed? Like, did you forget yourself when you got older, or what happened? And usually people claim, oh, it's money. Once they smell the money, it's different. And I'm like, is that really it? Is it? Because why, how, pero like what? So as millennials who have had to adapt and be exposed to things much earlier, and having to process and create their own opinions, possibly much earlier, as well as adapt them when they learn new knowledge later, that like, oh, snap, maybe, okay, now I see what the problem is. That's not really what the problem was. Now I see who the real problem is. Can we collectively collaborate to make sure we don't repeat all these things that we are very aware is a problem? Can we truly really create the world that we all know we deserve? Because that seems to be a constant theme that other people, other generations complain about. The millennials are so much about fairness and justice, and we will cry over flowers and butterflies, and like we're apparently too soft because we care so much, or because if we're going to be a part of this, this needs to be aligned with our values. And apparently other generations did not, maybe either they did not have that privilege because there was like a different type of war happening or a different type of economic situation happening for them. So they didn't have the privilege to hold space for things like that, which are just as important. But if that's who we are as a generation, what, now that we are possibly in a time where we can write the new story for where we want this world to be, are we writing it? And are we on the same page of what that story is? Because I think we can now gradually shift out of just raising awareness and then looping in, be aware about everything that's wrong. Now I feel like, okay, yeah, we know what's wrong. Have we now started creating what would look right? And have we created the CGI image and the 3D model and the blueprint and the outline? And, you know, what would the train tracks look like? Do we even need the train? What would this school look like? What would parenting dynamics look like? You know, like I see it in terms of individually, that we take note of, okay, millennials are trying to parent their kids differently, not claiming previous generations were so terrible, but taking note of like, okay, there were some holes here. Let's be more cognizant of, ask the kid, how do you feel? Do you want to go to dance practice? Are you enjoying soccer practice? How is the classroom? And how do the adults you're interacting with make you feel? How does this, you know, and really giving the child the autonomy to speak and explore their own emotions of like, yes, I understand why, like we noted in a previous episode about generations and stuff, and taking note now, go ahead and speak to the 4 or 5-year-old as if they are an equal human being. And let's talk through why they felt frustrated. It might, yes, as an adult, it was a simple thing, but to the kid, this is a very big deal because this is their first time dealing with frustration. So let's talk it out. Okay. Same thing. We see millennials doing that in the workplace of like, it's not a mental health day. It's like, no. It's just as a token. It's like, no, actually, we're going to set up the office where it actually is accommodating to what your needs are. And we're holding space for how best do you work sort of deal. So we can be flexible. Okay. We know not all corporations are doing this, but the ones that you can tell which corporations or institutes have millennials in spaces that are making decisions, because those are the ones that the office space, you can tell, oh, this is a place that doesn't feel like a prison. Like they actually care about their employees. Like they really want you to be healthy while you're working here. Or, oh, you know, this museum is definitely giving aesthetics. So you know it was curated by a millennial because they understood the assignment with their seats to sit on and they're actually comfortable. And you know what I'm saying? Like we have a certain level of details that I think resonates with this idea that we all carry of everyone should be accounted for. Everyone should feel served and deserving. And we don't need to continue dismissing or exploiting for the sake of business or the sake of development. We should be able to win without causing so much destruction, sort of thing. And I think that's wonderful and so beautiful. When are we going to shift that from the individual sets that we see to the mega one where it's like, wow, we can see this entire country must be run by a millennial because they got it down pat, right? Like, wow, this entire agreement, a millennial must be running this or must be in charge of this because like the ocean is now clean. Wow. Like that level of stuff. I think we are now at a point where we need to start also thinking about balancing both the awareness with, okay, so what's the new thing? Because I feel if collectively we start doing that, either first as individuals, of course, because millennials were very much into like, we got to manifest it, speak it into existence, tweet it into existence, have the vision boards of all kinds. Can we do that also on the macro collective level of where we think this world should be and what the new system should look like? I feel like now is the time of like, we need to put that more concrete for ourselves because our time is coming for us to implement it and execute it. And when the money comes for that, when the millennials start smelling the money for that, We should be able to continue on our mission of being the pioneers we've been since day one, as opposed to all of a sudden forgetting ourselves like some people in previous generations have been doing. That is where I feel the healing and shifting and adapting that we've been doing. I feel like that's been our training individually and collectively. And I hope and trust that we're able to do that. I know that does mean that a lot of us might be a villain in some people's stories, because some previous generations really want things to just stay exactly the way they are because it benefits them. And that's okay. Y'all can adapt with millennials being the villain in your story. It's fine. But we owe it to ourselves and the generations coming after us who are not born yet. And those of you who are, okay, fine. Yeah, we owe it to you too. That this is why we're here. Like I feel this was the point. While a decade ago, I felt like, or some time ago when it was focused on just raising awareness and being knowledgeable, it kind of, one would feel slightly anticlimactic because you spent so much energy on the awareness part and then take note that nothing changed, or take note how other generations would dismiss it. Like, okay, yeah, you know all of that, but did it change anything? What did it do? All your noise, what did it do? That sort of thing. Now I feel like, well, now we can answer that question because we're going to move you out so we can do it. Because obviously, if you already knew the problem, previous generations, and you chose not to fix it, then making it seem like we're going to continue what you chose not to fix is not fair to us, because obviously we've demonstrated that we're not here to just continue being uselessly useless. So that is why I feel encouraged. I'm hoping and trusting, though, that we're all, as a generation, we're all on the same page, though, on that regard.
Yeah. I definitely think that we shouldn't think that all is lost and that there's nothing for us to do, and we just should just sit and wait. And I'm not sure. I guess like age is why people change, because like it's true. People when they're younger, they're so into stuff, and then when they get older, they're like, let's hope that we can, I don't know, try. We'll see in years to come what will happen, but to keep that fire and just do the best that we can. For me, I try to, because I do have those moments where I'm like, nothing's changing. It's not that big of a deal. So why even bother, or there's no point of overexerting yourself if it's just the same all the time. But then I remind myself of like little things can cause ripples, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you can do, even if you can't, like maybe you can't save the world tomorrow, but you can do a little thing that will add to saving the world tomorrow, because it's not like, I mean, we're not Superman, we're not like, Captain America or whatever. But I think little things are important. If there's like a little bit that you can do, a little bit of change or goodness in the world, I think it can multiply. And if more people do good things, then you can inspire other people to do good things. And I think that's the main thing with inspiration. I feel that sometimes sometimes we do too much of like, oh, this one person should change everything, and if they didn't, they're horrible, then let's paint them as a bad guy. Like, no, I think everyone has to do stuff, and we don't live in a vacuum. And I think even if let's say you maybe don't think you can make a big change about something, if you can inspire others to make changes themselves, that in itself can also be a big change, right? Because sometimes I feel like, oh my gosh, if only we were like superheroes or something, or we had like powers, then it'd be easier to fix the issues that we have. And then I also think we, obviously we're older, so many of us, of course, have jobs and are making money and things like that, and we know the money makes the world go round, obviously. So with money, that also can be power as well, and we can actually use our wallet and our money to make change also. And if we're budgeting and saving money and doing all of that, we also can use that as a way to to make change. And I love hearing stories about this. So many millennials who are like, I'm here doing my best, and maybe there's a unconventional job that I have that now it has worked out. This is some bloggers I've heard of, and like all the people that said I couldn't do, all the people that were against me, like, okay, that's fine, but I did my thing, and I kept what I had to do, and I know that this is what I was made to do. And if you can get to that point, then you can eventually make a lot of change, even if it doesn't feel like it's that big of a deal. And yeah, and I think like the thing you said about the mental health and implementing things that make life like easier. It shouldn't, we shouldn't dread going to work. We shouldn't be like drained and tired and feel like horrible doing work. It shouldn't be like that. We should be able to make our environments wherever we are as comfortable as they can. And it's important to note that no matter how young you are, you still have thoughts and feelings. Like we we always act like, oh, if you're a 3-year-old, 4 or 5-year-old, you don't know what you're taught, you don't know anything. I'm like, no, you should, we're not. I don't think people are just born and then there's nothing to them. Like they're useless. Like no, like we should try to hear younger people's voices, especially since we know how we felt or how we feel when older generations look down on us or say things about us because, oh, well, you're young, so you don't really know anything. We didn't like that, so we probably should try not to do that to younger ones, right? So yeah, so we can try to be more open. It'll be interesting when we at some point have a millennial as a president, because I don't think we've really done that. I mean, I guess we're still kind of too young, or people assume we're too, I don't know. But I'm curious to see how it would be when we finally
Yes.
have a millennial president and not, someone who's like almost like 90 or something like that. Not something wrong with that, but it'll be interesting to see how that will make things different. And yeah, and I remember one of I forgot who was one of my favorite singers, and like and she's also a millennial, and she said something where there was some guy or someone that she respected who told her like, your problem is you just care too much. You just care too much. And she was like, what? What does that even mean? Like, what does it mean you care too much? That's what, and then she's also a millennial. So like, yeah, it's kind of like maybe people just don't care enough, and that's why we have these issues, or people try things and they give up and they're just like, well, this is just the way it's always been, so why change things but no, I do think there's a new system that will have to be created. But I mean, not that we have to completely get rid of everything. There are some things that are still working, obviously, but a lot is not. And I do think that I think I also am encouraged, because even though some people are like, oh, it's over, we get tired and stuff, people are still doing things. People are still making noise and making movements, and you putting their money where their mouth is, and really kind of trying to make dents in things. And I think that's good, because like it's about us. Like we're I guess we're like the consumers, I guess, of all this information and knowledge and money and all this stuff. So we should say something. We should be able to stand up and be and not be afraid to, say, this is, I'm a millennial pioneer. I'm living in my truth. So you should have a say with how your life is going to be. And also not only for our lives, but future generations, right? Because like we are affected by the older generations, right? They're affected by what they did. And so we can also think about what will someone that's in the next generation, how will they feel about what we did? How would that like help them, and how will that push them to make change and things like that? So yeah, it's interesting as we're going through this shift. I mean, there's always that weird feeling, because I don't know when you really 100% feel like an adult, but I've heard even an old, like, you never really know. I'm like, I guess I thought that once you turn a certain age, oh my God, I'm an adult and I do adult things and I'm amazing. But I still feel like, wait, I'm an adult, but like I still feel like a kid, and I don't know how do you know if you're adulting correctly? What does this mean? But that's fine. Still keep on pushing and trying your best to do what you can. And like, I think little things can help too, even if you feel like, oh my gosh, like I can't fix everything, so I'm just not going to do anything. Like, no, we should. And I think in recent events, like with a lot of stuff on the news and stuff, we've seen how, yeah, that we still do have a fire. I think sometimes we just like, forgot about it, but like we have a fire and people are saying things, and the dirty laundry is out. The wool has been removed from our eyes, and we see all of this that's going on. And I think you can't cover it up. It's like the Pandora's box thing. You can't like, you saw it, like you opened the box, you saw what was inside. You can't pretend now that, oh my God, what? I don't know what's happening with the world. Like, no, you know? So yeah, I think it will be interesting to see. I'm encouraged to see. I don't know. Well, I suppose we'll see more of it in 10, 20, 30 years from now. But I do think, yeah, we need to figure out a way to collaborate in a way like it, you know, like where everyone is able to see that, hey, we can make changes and everybody can. It can't just be like, oh, okay, just those 5 people will do it and we'll just sit here. Like, no, everyone has a role to play. And I know a lot of people, millennials, are kind of, we're tired, right? We're tired, we're disgruntled, we're kind of like, this is not the world. We didn't like this COVID stuff and these war and like all this stuff, like where, you know what, like we were about to do all this stuff and it's like, oh, wait, I thought we were gonna, weren't we promised something? Weren't you guys gonna give us like candy? I'm just kidding. I was like a metaphor, and we didn't really we didn't really get that. And yeah, I personally feel that way too, where it's like in college or in high school, you thought, oh, like things will be so awesome, and you would get like, if you do all these things right, then you get this. And then on the other side of it, when you're graduated and you're in the real world, it's kind of like, wait a minute, why? I thought it seemed like the earlier generation, I thought y'all got it. I thought y'all had it. I thought everything was good. And then it's like, oh, there's a lot of issues here. And I'm kind of like, I don't know if I agree with all of these things that the older generation is doing. I also don't agree with the mocking us, because a lot of mocking happens when millennials like find something else that they're doing that works better for them. Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see what happens in years to come with the new millennials. And yeah,
Nice. Well, thank you for this conversation. I think it was
nice. Thank you.
And I hope you listening also enjoyed it. And if you happen to also be a millennial, we hope you felt encouraged. And I hope you do deserve even more credit than you give yourself for what you've already been going through and what you will most likely continue to pioneer and cultivate in making this galaxy a better place, because that's why we're all here. Yes. So thank you again. As always, let us know what you think of this episode, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Right. Yeah. Have a good time, and blessings and love always, and continue pioneering.
Yes.
All right. Bye.
Bye. Take care.